The Boston housing market is no longer one market. Two homes at the exact same price point can now have completely different outcomes, depending on how they fit the way that people actually want to live today. And underneath all the headlines about low inventory and rising prices, the market is quietly splitting into two completely different realities. One where buyers are still competing aggressively for the right homes, and another where sellers are chasing a version of the market that no longer exists for them. Over the last year, I've watched this shift happen across Greater Boston, and some homes are getting multiple offers almost immediately, while others are sitting for weeks, cutting prices, and struggling to get attention at all. And honestly, the gap between those two types of homes is getting bigger. Because Boston has become so expensive, buyers are thinking so much more carefully now. They're not willing to compromise the same way that they were a few years ago. People are paying closer attention to walkability, commute time, layout, renovation costs, neighborhood feel, monthly payment, and really whether a home actually fits their lifestyle long term. The problem is that a lot of sellers are still pricing and marketing their homes based on what worked during the frenzy of 2021 and 2022. But buyers have changed. And this is something my team and I are seeing constantly right now, working with clients across Greater Boston. Some homes still create emotional competition almost instantly, and others lose buyers before they even schedule a showing. So in this video, I want to break down exactly how the Boston housing market is splitting in two, which homes are still winning right now, which ones are starting to struggle, and what both buyers and sellers need to understand moving forward. So let's get into it. The market looks healthy, so why are some homes struggling? On the surface, Boston looks like a perfectly healthy real estate market. Inventory is still low by historical standards, constrained, not collapsing, but definitely not abundant. Prices are still strong across a lot of areas, and Boston remains one of the most desirable cities in the country. Jobs, universities, healthcare, culture, the demand story hasn't gone away. So why are some homes sitting? Here's the thing. The headline numbers are hiding what's actually happening underneath, because we're entering a market where buyers are no longer reacting the same way to every home. Some listings are getting immediate traction, offers in the first weekend, buyers waiving contingencies, prices getting pushed way over asking. That is still happening regularly. But other listings at similar price points in similar towns are sitting there for 3, 4, 5 weeks, getting price reductions and struggling to generate any real urgency at all. Of course, this divide always existed to some degree, but a few years ago, the frenzy covered up a lot of flaws. Buyers were compromising on almost everything just to win a house. But those flaws are showing up faster, and they're showing up clearly. Now, from what we're seeing in the field, they're being selective, emotionally cautious, much more intentional about where they're willing to stretch. A turnkey home in a walkable neighborhood sells the first weekend. A similar priced home nearby, bigger lot, but more isolated and maybe needs some work, it might sit for a month. That's not a coincidence, it's a pattern, and it's showing up all over Greater Boston right now. So what's actually driving this divide? Buyers no longer want problems. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention already: renovation fatigue. Today's buyers are heavily penalizing uncertainty, and it's not an irrational thing. It actually makes complete sense when you understand the full picture. Think about what a buyer is taking on right now. They're already dealing with higher interest rates. They're already stretching to hit the purchase price. And on top of that, renovation costs remain high, partially because the cost of materials has surged. For example, composite decking alone is up around 30% in the past year. Timelines can be unpredictable, and frankly, most buyers are time-strapped. They don't have the bandwidth to manage a major renovation. So when they walk into a home with an outdated kitchen, aging systems, deferred maintenance, or an awkward floor plan, and what used to feel like potential now feels to them like risk. A home needing $250,000 in updates no longer feels like an opportunity to a lot of buyers. It feels overwhelming. And this is a really important shift to understand, because in a high-cost market, buyers don't just fear overpaying anymore. They fear making the wrong life decision. They're calculating the true monthly cost much more carefully now: purchase price plus renovation costs plus carrying costs, and they're thinking about how long they're actually going to be living in the construction zone. They're asking themselves, do we really want to deal with this? And more, the answer is no. The other side of this is seller disconnect. A lot of sellers are still anchored to peak pandemic expectations. When buyers were so desperate that they'd take on almost anything just to get a house, that dynamic has genuinely shifted. Buyers have slightly more breathing room now than they did in 2021 or 2022. Not a flood of options, but enough that they can afford to walk away from homes that don't feel like projects. Which brings us to the next major shift that's causing this split. People are rebuilding their lives around convenience. Here's something I think is really underappreciated in the Boston market right now. People used to optimize for square footage. Now they're optimizing for quality of life. The pandemic fundamentally changed how people think about where they live and why. Hybrid work gave people time back, and they actually started paying attention to how they were spending it. And a lot of people realized that they were spending way too much time in their cars. Walkability is now one of the biggest drivers of demand in Greater Boston. And I'm not just talking about urban neighborhoods. I'm talking about town centers, places where you can walk to coffee, restaurants, a park, maybe even the train, places where your kids can gain some independence, places that give you a sense of community and connection. Think about what that actually means for your daily life. You walk to get your morning coffee instead of driving. You grab dinner without fighting traffic. Maybe you have a teenager who can get around without you driving them everywhere. You spend less time in your car and more time actually living your life. People are realizing that they're not just buying a house, they're buying the life around the house. And that insight is what's shaping which neighborhoods are winning right now. Places like Arlington, Belmont Center, Winchester Center, they're consistently outperforming because they offer that walkable village center feel with strong commuter access. Charlestown, Brookline Villages, the South End, it's all the same story. And the contrast is real. Large, isolated homes, which are beautiful on paper with big lots or lots of space, but very car dependent and far from town center with longer commutes, well, those are struggling to generate the same emotional pull that they used to, because buyers are doing the lifestyle math now, not just the price math. And when they run that math, convenience keeps winning. Now, if you're thinking about making any kind of move in Greater Boston, this is exactly why understanding the personality and long-term trajectory of different towns matters so much. Not every town is the same. Commute patterns are different. Walkability varies enormously. Pricing dynamics, school quality, long-term value trends, it all differs town to town in ways that aren't as obvious until you're deep into the research. My team and I put together a free Boston relocation guide that breaks down the things that most people don't fully understand until they actually live here. We cover commute patterns, lifestyle differences between towns, pricing dynamics, walkability, schools, and which areas tend to hold value the best over time. So if you want that, make sure you scan the QR code on the screen right now or click the link in the description below and we'll get it over to you. It's completely free and it will save you a ton of research time. All right, back to the market. Now here's something that might actually surprise you. A lot of homes in Greater Boston are large on paper, but they don't actually feel good to live in. And today's buyers are catching on faster than ever. Why? Because a huge amount of Greater Boston's housing stock was built for a lifestyle that most families don't really live anymore. Think about that formal dining room that no one uses, the closed-off kitchen that feels isolated from the rest of the house, the rigid floor plan that doesn't offer a good place for a home office or a mudroom or flex space for how your family actually functions. A lot of homes still reflect how people lived 20 years ago, not how families function today. And here's what makes this especially powerful in today's market. Buyers are making emotional snap judgments faster than ever before. They're filtering homes online in seconds. The photos either create a feeling or they don't. The layout either makes sense or it doesn't. By the time a buyer walks through the front door, they've already formed a strong emotional impression. And if that first impression is, this doesn't really feel like my life, well, that can be very hard to recover from. The homes that are winning right now tend to share a few things: open, connected living spaces, really good natural light, a layout that makes sense for how modern families actually spend their time, good indoor-outdoor flow, a kitchen that feels like the center of the home, not an afterthought. These homes create an emotional reaction quickly, and that emotional reaction is what drives competitive offers. The homes that are struggling, well, a lot of them are perfectly fine on paper, but they don't create that same feeling. And in this market, that feeling really matters. Here's a trend I want to highlight because I think it's really important and most people aren't talking about it. In uncertain markets, buyers are becoming more conservative with major financial decisions, not less. When people feel economic uncertainty, whether it's interest rates, job market noise, global events, they don't become reckless, they become more careful. They start asking, if I buy this home and something changes, what's my exit here? How liquid is this asset? How confident am I that I can easily sell it in 5 or 10 years? And that shift in thinking is quietly driving demand towards what I call blue chip real estate in Greater Boston. Places like Brookline, Newton, Belmont, Winchester, Lexington, Wellesley, these towns have something that's really hard to replicate: strong schools, walkability, commuter access, name recognition, proving long-term demand. And most critically, they have constrained supply. There's not a lot of new housing getting built in these places. Affluent buyers, particularly those that have a lot of options, are increasingly thinking about real estate more strategically. They're not just asking, is this a nice house? They're asking, is this a smart place to park a significant amount of money for the next decade? And the towns that answer yes to that question are seeing sustained, durable demand even as other parts of the market start to soften. In contrast, further out or less established markets where demand tends to be more property specific driven than location driven, well, these areas still have great individual homes, but they don't carry the same resale confidence. And the buyers who are thinking strategically, which is more and more buyers right now, they're factoring that in. Okay, I want to be really direct about this one because I see this mistake constantly right now. The biggest mistake sellers are making right now is assuming that buyers still think the same way that they did during the frenzy years. And I want to be precise here because I'm not just talking about overpricing. That's too simple. The real issue is more nuanced than that. Sellers are anchored to a market that rewarded scarcity alone. When inventory was historically low and buyers were desperate, almost any home sold quickly. Condition didn't matter much, layout didn't matter much, lifestyle fit didn't matter much. It was a pure supply-demand equation. That dynamic has shifted. Inventory is still relatively low, but buyers are no longer reacting with that same desperate urgency. They've gotten more selective, more emotionally cautious, more strategic, which means that inventory alone is no longer enough to guarantee emotional demand. What buyers are rewarding today is alignment. Does this home fit how I want to live? Does it feel move-in ready? Does it feel aspirational? Does it make me feel confident about the decision that I'm about to make? The homes winning right now are the ones making buyers feel emotionally confident. They're presented well, they're positioned clearly, they make the lifestyle case quickly and compellingly. The homes struggling are the ones that still assume that scarcity will do all the work for them. That buyers will overlook the dated kitchen or the awkward layout or the deferred maintenance because everything moves in Boston. Some things still move fast, but not everything, and the gap is widening. If you're thinking about selling in the next year or two, this is the single most important thing to internalize. The market has changed, buyer psychology has changed. The strategy has to change with it. Now, here's the flip side. Because the split market is actually creating real opportunity for buyers who are paying attention. The buyers making the smartest decisions right now aren't trying to just get a house. They're thinking about how they want to live over the next decade. They're being strategic about which homes are genuinely worth competing for and which ones the market is overpricing based on outdated assumptions. They're identifying overlooked value in homes that don't photograph well, but have strong fundamentals, like good bones, great location, real upside. They're focusing on long-term lifestyle fit because they know that buying the right house in the right town for how they actually want to live beats chasing square footage every single time. And they're being honest with themselves about avoiding emotional overpaying, because in a market this expensive, paying a significant premium for the wrong house is a very costly mistake. And buyers who are winning right now aren't the most aggressive ones, they're the most intentional ones. So here's where I'll leave you. The Boston housing market is splitting in two, and understanding which side of that split you're on changes everything about how you should be approaching your next move. If you're buying, get clear on what you actually want your life to look like. Buy for lifestyle fit. Buy in towns with durable long-term demand, and don't let urgency push you into the wrong direction. If you're selling, stop anchoring to 2021. The buyers in front of you today are different. They're more selective, they're more emotionally cautious, and they're rewarding homes that create confidence, not just homes that are available. If you're thinking about buying, selling, relocating, or making any kind of move in Greater Boston over the next few years, my team and I would love to help you build a real strategy around it. A huge part of what we do is helping clients understand these market shifts before they make major decisions, so that they can move with confidence instead of second guessing themselves. If you want that kind of guidance, feel free to reach out anytime using the contact information in the description. And if you want to go deeper on which Boston suburbs consistently hold value the best over time, especially in shifting markets like this one, make sure you watch this video right here. It breaks down Boston's blue chip suburbs and where real estate has historically performed the strongest long term. I'll see you there.